That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, Arvanauts. Welcome, everybody, to a Saturday night stream. It is, what today is it? Yes, December 26th. It is the day after Christmas. I should know that. It's the day after Christmas, December 26th, 2020. We have only 5 days remaining, counting today, 27, 28, 29, 31. Yeah, 5 days remaining of 2020 before finally this endless year, this 300th day of March, or whatever the heck it is finally over, and we move on to 2021 and whatever that will hold for us. And here's hoping that it doesn't hold anything like what 2020 did. So that's what we've got left, but we have got some fun streams left to do on the channel before that. So welcome, everybody, to two things tonight. We have got a very, very special end of the year, game of the year show that I do every year, and that is going to be followed at around 9:15 or so with Holiday D&D with Viewers, Holiday Edition, Winter Splendor Part 2. For the first time, I think, we are going to have a two-part D&D with Viewers stream, which is going to be very exciting, and I look forward to seeing how the crew will solve the mystery that is before them of Winter Splendors. That's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to that. Before we get there, though, just a couple of reminders about ways to support us here on the channel. If you haven't already done so, please consider following us on the channel. Please consider checking out the YouTube with !ArvTube. I really want to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I'm going to be making a big push for that channel-wide over the next year because getting to 1,000 viewers would allow me to monetize that channel, and that would give me an out. I mean, not that I expect this to happen. I love Twitch, etc., but just in case, it might be a good place to have, safe harbor if Twitch were ever to have some issues, which could, theoretically occur. In 2021, I'd like to have a place that I could get to without having to rely on Facebook, which I will absolutely not stream on. So I am at 761, 62, something like that, subscribers right now. So hopefully we can get some more people over there subbed. It's free, and you'll be able to check out previous broadcasts of D&D with Viewers and many other channels, or many other streams on the channel as well. Subscribing, actually I'll talk about that in a minute. You can also check us out and support us by supporting the Twitter, which is !ArvTweets. You can go over there and follow me on that. That is also very much appreciated. You can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams on the Discord, !ArvCord, and all of this can be found on our website, arvaneleron.com. On the financial side, you can support us by checking out the shop, !ArvShop, which is the merchandise area that has a bunch of stuff with Infinity and Beyond, and with the Adventures of Middle-earth crew, and soon to be, hopefully, some Esper Genesis stuff over there as well. !ArvTreon is the Patreon, which will link you to the Patreon, currently sitting at $197 per month. Again, we're trying to pick that up a little bit so that we can move forward with that. Again, the Patreon has been super helpful. In many ways, it is the financial backbone of the channel, and so I would love to be able to get people more individual stuff that it supports, but also, of course, it supports the channel as a whole and lets us do things as a whole for the channel, which would be very much appreciated. So consider jumping on board to help us with that. You can get inspirations for the players and copies of one of my band's albums and professional critiques of your writing and numerous other things if you're able to jump on board and help us with that. And last, but certainly not least in that regard, we have the sub system. Those of you who are subscribed to the channel are going to be able to get those awesome sub badges and emotes and the flares, the custom flare and all that kind of stuff, plus get inspirations for the players as well. So all of that is very much appreciated too. And then we have the publishing stuff, !Icarus for my Icarus graphic novel details from Athos Arts, !Library for Tales and Tomes from the Forbidden Library, from Alligator Alley Entertainment, that is in the US now. It's just a matter of actually getting shipped out to the people in question. So we're almost there. Hang in there for those of you who have been so patient. It is already available, of course, in digital form over on Drive-Thru RPG. And then we have got, of course, Gray Shade KS. I'm going to be talking a lot about that as the new year begins, because that's going to be launching in early February, and I'm very excited about the prospects for that. So hopefully people will be ready to tune in and find out more about those details. And that leads us to the last two things, BLM, Black Lives Matter. Again, it's never been more important than now to assert and affirm the importance of Black lives. And Help Now, which is our World Health Organization page on preventing suicide, and any of that is enormously important, especially at a very difficult time of the year for a lot of people in what is a very difficult year for just about everybody in 2020 because of the pandemic. So any support that people can give and can learn about their resources and information and ways to reach out to people would be very much appreciated. So schedule-wise, we start out today with the Game of the Year show, and accordingly, let me get rid of this And let me get rid of that, and let me turn on that. There we go. Good to see you all. Welcome, welcome. And again, happy holidays. If I did not see you yesterday, happy holidays and, Merry Christmas and happy Hanukkah and happy Kwanzaa and happy Festivus and all that kind of good stuff. I hope everyone is doing well, and I hope you folks are looking forward to what I hope is going to be a very fun stream today with the Game of the Year stream, and then we're going to be moving on to D&D with viewers in about an hour or so. And happy monkeys. That's very, very true. So I want to talk a little bit then just about this setup. So normally what I do, I actually watched a lot of my 2019 show yesterday. And often what I do is I will sort of give a state of the channel during this show, and I'll talk a little bit about where the channel has been and where I think it's going and what the year was like for me. Last one was a very big involved one because it was the end of a decade. And so I basically talked about the impact of the channel and, stuff with my health and stuff, just a whole bunch of things that we ended up talking about. And I'm not going to do a big, super elaborate thing every year about that, but I do want to be able to talk a little bit about that. So probably on Tuesday, which will be my last official stream of the year, I'll talk a little bit about what 2020 was like for everybody, and then specifically for me, and talk a little bit about the channel and how things went this past year and what's coming up in the future. I'm not going to take a long time with that, but I'll probably spend like 15 minutes or so doing that on Tuesday. But today, what's up, Rock God? And hello, Nonstop. And hello, of course, Echo. But today I want to do something. I want to focus, I think, on those games because there are a lot. And it's Terma. Chalika. I also have that. Oh, man. See, I knew there was a holiday. First, I thought you meant I had forgotten a game. And I'm like, I didn't play a game called Chalika. But so I went through and I took a look at the list of games. And I thought just in terms of statistics, some of you might be interested to know. I'm going to pull up my list here. Some of you might be interested to know that last year I played 20 games on stream. I played a couple of games off stream as well, but I played 20 games on stream, and I combined both here and over on GOG.com's Twitch channel and Pen and Pixels. So I played 20 games last year, of which 4 of them were new, and the number one game last year was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I am happy to say that unlike Bard's Tale, which was my 2018 Game of the Year, Bard's Tale 4 kind of fell off a cliff in the last quarter of that, which I played the year after 2018, so I kind of felt bad that I had given that the top award, because frankly, I wouldn't have if I had played the last part of it, before the end of the year. But I'm happy to say that didn't happen with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I finished Fallen Order in 2020, and it was great, and it was definitely a worthy 2019 Game of the Year for me. So I played 20 games, 4 of which were new last year. So this year I played 21 games, pretty close. 21 games, and of that set, this is on stream, 1, 2, 3, 4 again were new. So the same number were new, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 were new again this year. So 4 brand new games that came out this year. Other games that are on this list are games that came out in a previous year, or that were played by me, that were starting this year. And that's basically the criteria. It has to have been started this year. If I started playing the game last year and then continued into this year, it doesn't count because I already ranked it on last year's list. And I pretty much included everything on here that I played this year with one exception, and that is Planescape Torment. I didn't include that on here because that was one of the Patreon Field Chat Chosen Games of the Month. Planescape Torment is among my top at least 15 games of all time, I would basically say. And I've already played it and won it several times, and so I'm going to be playing it, I imagine, at some point. I think I have it on my regular list of games to stream. So at some point, I'm going to be doing that. Right? Banned forever. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Thank you, Rock God. What an odd thing. Just let's wander around, find somebody, and then say that, and then leave. And then just take a dump in someone's channel and then leave. What an odd small way to live your life. Boy, I hope you have a happier holiday, man. Go grow up. Anyway, so the experience of going through this list was interesting because Planescape Torment, if I had included that in this list, I would have, in including in this list, it would have thrown everything else off because, I don't know how to rank it. I only played it one session, for one thing. Thank you, Echo. I only played it one section, first of all. Number two, like I've already played it a bunch of times. Like, I mean, it's an amazing game. So I don't really want to put it with everything else, even though this is the first time I actually streamed it was this year. So Planescape Torment is in its own category. Other than that, though, I put pretty much every game that I played on stream ended up here. In one way or the other. And so I'm going to go through these. I ranked them all 21 of them, and we're going to go through them from 21 up to 1. So I'm going to do that. I'll try to respond and, to discussions and things like that. I may go through some of the list, and then I may go through like 5 at a time and then come back and check chat or something like that. So we'll see how that goes. What's up, Raider? Good to see you. We shall see. We shall see, Echo. We shall see if you are correct. We shall see. All right. Starting off at number 21 of the games that I played this year, we have Tron. Now, that, of course, is the amazing Dragon Spear. Did that little bit of Photoshop work. Tron 2.0. I liked Tron as a movie very much, and I liked even the Tron arcade game. I wish I could say that I liked this game, but I kind of didn't. I found the game buggy and irritating, and and I feel bad because I know Dragon Spear absolutely adores this game and was like super excited for me to play it, and it was not my bag. So I'm sorry about that. My fellow GOG streamer Memories and 8-Bit has played it and loves this game, and that's awesome for them. But no, thank you. This is not. I was not hearing the da 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 da. I was not hearing any of that when I was playing this. So that was clearly the bottom. That was definitely the bottom game. I mean, it wasn't awful, but it was just not my thing, for sure. So anyway, that was game number 21, was Tron 2.0. Game number 20 was another game that I wasn't sure how people were going to react to this game when we first played it, mostly because this had so much information on it. There was so much stuff, and let me just there we go. There was so much stuff here that was a part of this, and I just was like, I don't know. I wanted to see how it was all going to go, honestly, and that's what happened. And so we end up with this. We end up with Kingdom Come Deliverance was number 20. Again, this is another game that was not bad, but I have to admit, and this is just, by the way, this is totally my opinion. This people can completely decide whatever they want to decide. I just wasn't that intrigued by Kingdom Come Deliverance. I found the combat to be incredibly annoying. And I found that the only game you missed so far, Coven, is Tron 2.0 was at 21. So this is Kingdom Come Deliverance at 20. I found the combat to be very annoying, and I found like a lot of the sort of I just found it kind of like meh. I don't know. I was sort of underwhelmed. And admittedly, I only played it for 3 hours. And, I would obviously need to play it for longer to get a real sense of it. But I don't know. It was, again, not my thing. And I may try it again at some point just to kind of see, because I know a lot of people love this game. But I was just kind of like, I don't know. I was not wild about Kingdom Come Deliverance, but be that as it may. Again, not terrible, but I just didn't get the sense that it was going to be my thing, to be perfectly honest. And so Kingdom Come Deliverance was the next one. Oh, is that why? Because we didn't experience the hover horse? Yeah, like I don't know. I'm not sure what it was. Okay. So the next thing we had, number 19 on the list, was Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age. This is the definitive edition, and I got this, I believe, for Steam, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't think it was available on GOG. This wasn't bad, and I have to admit that I found this disappointing. But basically the 4 bottom titles in this list, 21 through 18, were all games that I hoped I was going to like more than I did, and I just kind of didn't that much. I found Dragon's Quest XI to be honestly kind of repetitive. And again, I happen to really love JRPGs. I don't love every JRPG, but I love a lot of JRPGs. I tend to like a lot of the Final Fantasy, style JRPGs. I also loved games like Chrono Trigger and Suikoden. And, these are all games, Vandal Hearts back in the day, Vagrant Story. These are all JRPGs, right? And so, yeah, I feel like I know that, what these games are like. This game, though, just kind of was like, eh. Again, I found it to be repetitive. Even the music I found to be repetitive, which is too bad. I'm like, awesome, we've got a full orchestra. And then it was just like, It didn't, and that game I played probably a good 4.5 hours maybe. Again, enough to make a full judgment? No, but there are a lot of these games that I get enough of a sense to go, I want to come back and play it. A lot of games that started out as Patreon chat chosen game of the month ended up as games that I played through much more later. But this didn't happen. So, that was kind of interesting to see how that all went down. So Dragon Quest 11, again, none of these games are bad. I just was not my bag. So that was number 19. And the last of this list of games that I really was kind of like about is, let me make sure that I get the picture here, was one that I played. Is that it? No, it's not it. That's not it. There it is. Was this game. And that is Greedfall, which I actually played over on GOG. I haven't completely given up on that. No, I know nonstop. But the thing is, though, there are so many games that I play, including long RPGs, that I do end up liking, even if I don't like the first couple of hours, but I can see the potential. This was not one of those games, I mean, and there's so many games out there that I'm not sure the whole, I'm not saying you're saying this, but well, you have to play it 15 hours to get into it. That's cool, man. But I have lots of games to play. So, oh, nice. Their account is already suspended. Good. It should be. So anyway, yeah, so that was kind of the way I felt about that. So this is another game, Greedfall, that I really wanted to like. It felt like a game that had a lot of things going for it. It felt like it had some interesting meditations about empire, which I find interesting, and some interesting concepts about even a post-colonial vibe that could be into it, interesting ways of playing with music and combat. And I think the problem is that in this case, the parts were just not up to the whole. They just don't all come together. The facial animations was one big problem because the facial animations are garbage. And for I guess this was 2019 that this game came out, or 2018, for a game that's pretty recent, you kind of can't do that when you have other games that you're sort of directly competing with. I mean, is it fair to compare it directly to something like The Witcher 3? No, because that's a AAA studio and the folks who put this out are not AAA. But this is literally playing in The Witcher 3's backyard. And if you're going to do that, you better have something that stands out if it's not going to be the graphics, and that didn't really fit for me. The world building I thought was cool, and the concepts I thought were cool, but I looked at it and I felt like there were so many games that did all these things better. There's a lot of great world building that tied in Plague and sort of Empire, but Dishonored did that better, And then there were a lot of things that tied in this notion of monsters and sort of gray morality, but The Witcher 3 does that better. So there were just so many things here that I was like, this was better when it was this, or this. Greedfall didn't really fit, but it did have great hats. That is true. Again, I haven't totally given up on Greedfall. I feel like there's something there. There's a game there that I might be interested in. We'll see. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to get. Oh yeah, this boom arm, dude. I got to get a new boom arm. I've almost got my setup all going, but it's just this one. It's so annoying. I just want this thing to stir. Anyway. So yeah, so Greedfall, I wanted to like more than I did, but not so much. So that was number 18. All right, now this next set of games are games that we start to move into the ones that I did like, but for whatever reason I just didn't like them as much as other things that we got here. So the first one of those, I wonder if I don't have this. It's possible that I don't have it. Hold on, just a moment. Maybe this is saved under something else. Usually I have everything, I have all the banners saved in one spot, which is what I'm using here. But it doesn't look like I have it for that. Okay, well, so this next one then, which I'll be doing without the benefit of an image, this next one is King's Quest. This is the one that came out a few years ago, so the new, in quotes, reboot King's Quest. I like this game. I thought that the King's Quest was fun, and it was the kind of game I could see myself coming back to. The main reason that it didn't go higher for me is that, as I talked about in previous streams, point and click adventures, no, not really. If you were to take a look at it, the ones inside are kind of internal. I've also had this boom thing for over a decade, so it doesn't surprise me, honestly, that it's starting to fade. I need to get something better. But anyway, so yeah, so King's Quest, I like the game, and I thought there were some cool parts to it. I liked some of the humor. And I could see myself again coming back to the game, but I have to be in the right mood to play a point and click adventure. I don't like adventure game logic a lot of the time, and I find very frustrating and not particularly stream worthy or interesting just wandering around randomly clicking on things, which is sometimes what I end up feeling like I'm doing. And so I have to really be into a point and click game to get through it. The Samaritan Complex was pretty good. Or no, the Samaritan Paradox. The Samaritan Paradox. I like that. Toonstruck was pushing it, but I stuck it out, and there was Christopher Lloyd in it, so that really helps. And then you have this game. Blade Runner is another game that I can see myself coming back to, which is point and click, but it really sort of depends. So I liked King's Quest, don't get me wrong, but it just did not rank as highly for me as some of the later games in this list. But this is not a game that I was like very disappointed in. It's a game that I thought was what it was, and again, I just, that sort of thing. Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree. It was true to the original series, and I would have had similar problems with the original series. I played a lot of the original King's Quests, and I just point and click adventures I have a limited shelf life with me, I guess is what I would say. But I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, that leads us to number 16 on this list. And number 16 was a game that was suggested by chat, and that game is this one, Spiritfarer. Now, Spiritfarer is a game that I'm absolutely going to come back to at some point in the future. Really beautiful graphically, really beautiful. Yeah. Oh, a tube of shoe goo and glue the joints with silicone sealant. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I don't want to like, if I lock it in place, it does need to be able to go up and over. You know what I mean? So I need to be able to do that. So that's a good call, Rudin. I'll think about that. So 16 is Spiritfarer. Graphics are great on this game. Music is great on this game, and it has a really beautiful kind of aesthetic to it. Even the creatures that you meet, the characters that you meet, the sort of interesting aspects of them, I really thought are neat. And there are a lot of things that I think are going to be really cool about this game that I'm looking forward to. I will admit that I'm a lot less interested in the resource management part of the game than I am the let's go and explore and find crew members and like do parts of the story. So I'm going to have to think a little bit about that, because my impression from playing it was that there's a lot of resource management that you have to do, and I'm not 100% sure that I want to do that that much. And the other thing too is that I have at the moment, I'm kind of drawn pretty thin when it comes to deeply emotional games. And like Coven just said, like there are some emotional part that hurt a bit, but it's the good hurt. Yeah, I don't think it's gratuitous at all, but man, I don't know. We've had a whole lot of death this year and a whole lot of anguish and grief, and I don't know. So I'm not, again, saying no to coming back to it. I can imagine that I will. This is not an objection whatsoever to Spiritfarer. It's just a game that I'm kind of like, I don't know that it's going to be top of the list because of the reasons that I've just described, but I think it's really cool. And that is the first of the brand new, just came out in 2020, games that I actually played this year. So Tron 2.0 is 21, Kingdom Come Deliverance 20, Dragon Quest 11 19, Greedfall 18, King's Quest 17, Spiritfarer 16. This now brings us to the top 15 games on the list. And the next 3 of these are actually all co-op games, which is interesting. I actually played 2 of them at the same or during the same session. The first one is We Were Here. This is one that I played with Zach Clay. And you may remember this is the one where basically 2 people are trapped in this really super weird like facility, like this place, and you have to kind of find your way out of it again. And you like, it's like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, where each person has one little part of a puzzle, and you have to each sort of talk to each other about the part of the puzzle that you see to help the other person solve it. I really like games like this, and I enjoyed We Were Here. It was neat. Again, very short, and I only played it for 1 session, which is probably why it isn't higher, because I didn't have a big sort of rate of return on the game. Like I just didn't play it enough to get a even higher opinion of it, but I did like it a lot, and I wish it's a game that there were more games like this, because I enjoy that back and forth stuff. In fact, the other game that I'm going to talk about in a little bit was another one just like that, which I also liked even better, and that was really cool. So We Were Here, which I recommend. It's on sale on Steam, and I think there are sequels to it now. I really liked a lot. Okay. that leads us to number 14, which was the another co-op game that I played, except that one I played actually earlier, and I played that with Sneaky Teak, and that is Vermintide 2. I really had fun with this game because I will fully admit that I have kind of wanted a Hexen-style heretic, Ziggurat, if you've played that game, sort of first-person fantasy thing that has more role-playing elements, that's more polished. I feel like Vermintide isn't quite all the way there because it's so much hack and slash that I don't know I love that as much as if it were more, RPG oriented. I would love to see that. I would love, the co-op Mass Effects of the world. That's the kind of game that I'd love to have more of, where you play through a full story experience with two people or more. And I had a great time. First of all, it will also help that I like Sneaky Teak, and we had a chance to actually play together. We will do that, of course, again. Same thing with Zach. I love playing with him. Obviously, he's a good friend, so I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed this as well. This was just crazy. It was funny because Teak was trying to talk to me about philosophical stuff, about so what do you think about this? I'm like, well, this, and I'm like, oh my god, 50 million rats, So that was pretty funny, but it was polished. They were a lot of fun, and it was cool to be able to play a game where you get to feel like a badass much of the time. So I think it's going to be great. Slay the Spire co-op. I'll tell you what Sneaky Teak Slay the Spire co-op would be. It would basically me being like, yes, sir, Mr. Teak. What card should I play, Mr. Teak? Thank you, Mr. Teak. I'm a decent Slay the Spire player, but he is absurdly good. So that's basically what that would be. It was pretty funny. Yeah, rats don't like philosophy. It was right. It was the tides of the uneducated, right? It was the tides of people who were like, I hate your philosophy. And me being like, no, get thee gone. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed Vermintide too. Okay, that was number 14. Number 13 on this list was the other of those co-op games. You can see a theme over these last three. And that was, let me see if I can find it, because I know it's down here somewhere. I know it's out there. There it is. And that is this game. Whoa, much bigger than I expected. That is this game. Hang on. You'll be able to see it in a minute. Sorry about that. Which was the other co-op game that I played with Zach Clay. And I did this earlier in 2020. And this is TikTok A Tale for Two. This actually, I think, was even better put together than We Were Here. I love the world building in this. And it felt very coherent in a world building way and very robust in terms of each person helping the other. I felt like there were times in something like We Were Here where it kind of dragged for one person or the other. But I never felt that way with this. I felt like this was one, there was a lot going on. This is the one that had the clock. Basically a Rudnell. I was thinking that in my head and I'm like, I shouldn't say that, but yes, pretty much you're right, Rudnell. But I really loved the clock, the sort of the intricate work of the birds, all of the different clues, the train schedule. That's the train station one. Exactly, Coven. Yeah. I really, really enjoyed that one. I know. I thought about that, Echo. TikTok, a different kind of TikTok, right? But I really liked this one a lot. And TikTok was really good. And again, this is another game I recommend. I love games like this, and I wish there were more of them, because I think having the chance, especially in a streaming context, for each person to help the other was really, really neat. So I would, if you haven't seen that VOD, you should go back and check that out, because that was pretty cool. And continuing that co-op theme, although I didn't always play the co-op theme, and then I'm going to leave co-op stuff mostly behind after this, but continuing that co-op theme is, I think, my first AAA, right? Yeah. Well, I guess Vermintide 2 would count as a AAA title, I guess. But this game definitely would. And that one is this one, Destiny 2. So I will admit to liking the Destiny games, because I have a soft spot in my heart for sort of space westerns. I love the aesthetic, and I love the concept of it. The problem with Destiny 2 is, and I played this actually with Zach, and I played it with Rob, GC Darkside Rob as well, and I had a great time with both of these. But man alive, I wish they would get their lore straight. It is so confusing in terms of what order you're supposed to play the missions to get the story. And I understand that that's because, well, for a lot of people, they already played through the story. Okay, but for a lot of people, they haven't. And you're never going to get more people to play if they literally don't know what the hell to do first. Like, you walk into it and like everything is open to you. And if you play it out of order, then you're never going to have any idea what's going on. And that's fine if you just want to shoot stuff. But I actually want to play the game and get like the story, progress the story, and like, because I think the world's really cool and I want to know more about it. And Destiny 2 just does a terrible job of that. And so I really hope that for Destiny 3, or I hope as they tweak this, that they get better at being able to make it a coherent experience. Because again, I really want co-op games to be functional, and I don't think it should be that hard to do it. You know what I mean? I would love to do more with that. The thing about Warframe, you know, not only the question about like having enough time for it, the other problem with Warframe, honestly, and I don't know if this is just, I've watched Rob play a bunch of this, the field of view is so weird to me. Like, the FOV is this weird thing where I feel like I'm way too close and you're running around all the time with just, I'm always like, what am I looking at? I don't. That's the thing about Destiny 2, right? The Destiny games, because Bungie ought to know, the Halo people, they ought to know what this is about. The gunplay in Destiny 2 is great. You sight, you aim, you fire, the recoil, the kickback, everything feels great. It feels tight and coherent. And it's, from what I understand, not nearly as tight in Warframe, although I will admit I don't have any experience in Warframe, but that's what I've heard. I just wish that Destiny 2's story would match up better. The coherency of the story would match up better with the sort of the world that they set up and the way that they play it, you know? So I would love to be able to do that. No, that's Destiny 1. No, Destiny 2, they put most of that inside the game, but they just made it really hard to find it. Like, you have to use a guide if you want to know what to play first, second, and third. And because everything is always available to you all the time, it gets really easy to be like, wait a minute, do I do this? And then if you do it out of order, then it gets confusing. Then they also like are constantly pulling things out. Like, they removed access to some parts of the game because they needed to clear out server space to put in new things. I'm just like, can I just play the game? Can I just play the game, please? So that's what I'd like to see more of. And with Warframe, you know, my impression, correct me if I'm wrong, my impression is that Warframe doesn't really have a story on the same level in the same way that Destiny or Destiny 2 does. Not that you could tell because of how out of order they put the story. So anyway, I really want to like Destiny 2. It is number 12 on my list because I like a lot of it, but I just want more. And yeah, Destiny 1, and I read some of that stuff. Putting the lore, I played through like 25 hours of Destiny 1 off stream last year, and I like Destiny 1. The lore isn't bad. Putting it outside the game is stupid. Like, I hate it when they do this. Take the lore and put it inside the game. There is nothing more immersive to being like, oh, read section 3, click on Firefox, go through my bookmarks. Like, come on, man. Keep us in the game. Like even if you just put up text in the game, I'd rather do that, you know? So that's good. Aw, thank you, Dragon. I appreciate it. Yeah, like, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, there's just... I want to be able to find the lore in a relatively coherent fashion, especially for those that arrive on the scene late to the scene. So I would have liked to see more. Anyway, Destiny 2, I like it, but you know, more could have been done. So that's number 12. That leads us to number 11 on this list. And number 11 on this list, I actually played as part of the Dungeon Crawler event that they were having to promote dungeon crawl games over on GOG.com. So I played this for a couple of sessions. I think maybe 2.5, I want to say. But that was this game, Heroes of the Monkey Tavern, which was number 11. This game surprised me, honestly. When I saw this game, my impression, because you got to remember, Legend of Grimrock 2 was my game of the year a few years ago. I love Vaporum Lockdown, which is a better game than this, as is the Grimrock games are better than this. This game surprised me because I looked at it and thought, this game has got a lot of rough edges. It's better than you might think, actually. Heroes of the Monkey Tavern is not bad. There are some interesting aspects to it. There are some neat levels. There's one level, basically, where you have this section where you have to go through this maze. Once you find this Minotaur, you have to run from the Minotaur because basically he'll just kill you. He can't be defeated. You have to find this one item in the maze after you release him. So you release him and then basically have to run from him while finding the thing. There's some cool elements. I really like Heroes of the Monkey Tavern. Again, it's not going to work miracles. It is not anywhere near the polish or quality of Grimrock or of Vaporum or any of these games, but it is not garbage. It's a pretty solid game for what it is. It's not expensive, and I thought it was kind of neat. It surprised me. And I think it's only like 12 to 15 hours. I played it. Obviously, it's available on GOG, and I played it, I think, in like 3 sessions. It wasn't even 12 hours because I played it, I think, in like 3 sessions, I want to say. So it was probably like 9 or 10, something like that. So I think it's worth it, and I enjoyed it. And it actually is higher than I might have expected on this list. If I was just if I knew the games I was going to play in the given year and threw them out there on a table, I would not have put this game as number 11. But I played it, and that's where it ended up. So that was that. So the bottom 11, if you will, Tron 2.0 was at 21. Sorry, Dragon. Kingdom Come Deliverance was 20. Dragon Quest 11 is 19. Greedfall 18. King's Quest 17. Spiritfarer 16. We Were Here 15. Vermintide 2 14. TikTok A Tale for 2 13. Destiny 2 12. And Heroes of the Monkey Tavern 11. Now, clocking in at number 10, and this is a measure. This is one of the only games that I only played once and liked enough that it entered my top games of the year, my top 10 games of the year. And that is God of War 2018. This probably was a game that I was expecting I was probably going to like based on what people had told me about it. Now, there are aspects of the combat that I don't necessarily love, and I'm going to have to get used to it. But man, the whole boy, the relationship between Kratos and the boy, the sort of reinventing of this concept of God of War without just slapping some new paint on it and calling it a day, but really creating an entirely new experience, which is going to be a theme we'll come back to a couple of times here. That was really awesome. And so I really was impressed with God of War, even though I only played it for that one session. I will absolutely come up tied for 20th. It was pretty much 21 Dragosphere. I'm sorry. I just didn't like Tron. But it was cool. I really enjoyed God of War and a lot of the story aspects of it. And it feels like a game that I'm going to enjoy playing through when I actually get to it on my list. This is one of those games, Patreon Chat Chosen Game of the Month, right? But it's a game that I've now put onto my permanent list that I want to play and that I will get to in due course. So I like God of War 2018. That was number 10. Number 9 on this list is a game which I played multiple times before, and I included it here because it was not only the first time I streamed it, but I did it a couple of times, and I think there is some promising stuff about this, and frankly, because it's Lord of the Rings, and it's Lord of the Rings Online. This is a game that I come back to periodically. Now, part of it is I'm a Tolkien nut. Part of it is that I love sort of the story-based stuff that you get there. Yes, I love the fact that I get to be a ranger. Of course, I dig all that stuff. It's basically like LARP in the time of COVID, right? It's cool. But I also think there's a lot of love put into these games, and even though there are problems, agreed, Rising Tides, and also, how you doing, man? And even though Lord of the Rings Online is definitely shown its age. I mean, the game is not a brand new game. I know a lot of people would tell me that Final Fantasy XIV has got a lot more polish, and there are other games with more polish. And I've played a lot of MMOs over the years, but they don't really speak to me the same way. The only exception to that is there are times when Star Wars, The New Republic, or no, Star Wars The Old Republic, sorry. Star Wars The Old Republic sometimes is a game that I find just as compelling sometimes as Lord of the Rings Online. Now, having said that, what's up, Lone Wolf, and hello, everyone. And Mrs. Dunsel as well. And also Crit Twitch. Having said all of that, hello, Danger Mind 49. Having said all of that, there are still issues with it, and it's a game that I sort of play some of, then uninstall, then I come back to it 6 months later and play more of it. So I am going to try to play much more of it when we get to it on the list. I do have it on the list to play, but I'm sorry, I do dig, playing through some of these quests and feeling like I'm in the world of, the world of Middle-earth. So whatever. That's my, what can I tell you? It's, I get the chance to geek out and pretend that I live in this world that I love so much. So, that's Lord of the Rings Online. I like it. I do think it's well managed. I just wish that they would update the engine. I mean, we'll be interested to see what the new MMO that Amazon is producing. It'll be interesting to see or no, that Amazon is licensing, I guess. They're obviously doing the TV show, but I think Amazon is also doing a new MMO or is connected with it. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what that's like and how that actually goes. So that was number 9 on my list. Number 8 on my list is a game that I liked more after I first played it. And then when I had a chance to think about it, I liked it somewhat less. I still liked it enough, don't get me wrong, that I'm still really glad that I played it, and I'm still, I would not have wanted to not play it, and I'm glad that I did. And that is this game, Detroit Become Human. There are some brilliant set pieces in this game. There are some brilliant voice acting performances, and there is some great, wonderful character development with different characters that occur within this game. What Cage is best at is giving you these, kick you right in the feels moments, right? And there are wonderful moments in Detroit Becomes Human. My favorite probably is the moment with the little girl on the carousel. That's a wonderful, wonderful moment. And I really like a lot of the aspects of that. The problems for me started to set in afterwards because the game really does oversimplify a lot. And this tends to be Cage's problem, is that he tends to be, I hate to say it this way, a kind of, white guy thinking that privileged white guy thinking he understands the sort of the real world of other people. And so he makes a game that has some very ham-handed references, on the nose references to discrimination and slavery. He literally compares what they're doing with the androids to the Underground Railroad. It's a game that I just wish he would go get some real writers, because Cage isn't it. I think Cage can come up with a great idea. It would be great if this is actually something with Hideki Kojima too. If Kojima would just stop thinking that he could not only come up with an idea, but write it. Kojima, I think, is a hack. I don't think Kojima is a good writer. I don't think Cage is a hack, but I don't think he's a particularly good writer, especially when there are many very good writers out there that would love to write for him within this universe and would love to write for both of them. And I think if you got the ideas that are produced by people like Kojima and Cage, who are very good at idea development, but you give it to people who know how to write, you really would end up with something better. And I feel like Detroit Become Human was a missed opportunity. There were a lot of good moments that could have gone even further. That said, though, there are some great set piece moments, and the graphics are yes, exactly, Rising Tides. That would have been a good start. Is to hire more writers of color, for instance. But having said that, I will say that this is a game that I like, that it's trying to deal with issues, even if it's doing it in a ham-handed way. And there are some things that are startling. The motion capture on the faces in this is extraordinary. Extraordinary. Some of the facial expression stuff is absolutely incredible. So there is a lot of great stuff coming out of this game, Cage's work. It's just so muddled and all over the place that the game doesn't hold up to close scrutiny. And I played, Indigo Prophecy, and I've seen people play, Beyond Two Souls, and other games of his, and they tend to all suffer from the same problem, which is that they're a little self-indulgent and they're a lot oversimplified. And I'm always kind of come on, dude, you're there almost, but not quite, and come on. So it doesn't quite sort of hold up to scrutiny, but it is a game I thought about quite a bit, and it is a game that I was happy to have played, and I do think it has some good moments that exist within it. All right, now for something completely different as we enter number 7. So number 7 is an example of an entirely different game, but it is a game, quite honestly, that does perfectly what it sets out to do. And this is partly because I'm doing it with a wonderful team. And that's this one, Paper Mario the Origami King. Look, I am fully aware that these games are silly, but they're so well localized. They're so much fun. They're so how do I describe them? They know what they want, and then they just execute it beautifully. And so it's the difference between a game that goes for a lot and misses, and a game that doesn't go for a lot but nails what it's going for. And that's, to me, a lot of the Nintendo games. Paper Mario the Origami King is a lot of fun. As Ramir said, satire, oddball humor, and enormous fun when you have people doing these voices. Plus a clever combat system. Doesn't always work quite on, but it's Man, I had so many laughs with this game, as I often do, of course, with your vocalist, and it was fun to play it with my daughter. So yeah, Origami King was one of those like warm the heart type games. Reminded me a little bit of Untitled Goose Game from last year in terms of the games that I liked that were really neat and fun and that I enjoyed and that I just had the smile on my face playing them. That tended to be what this was. Yes, and Russ bossing me around. That's exactly right. So I had a good time with this. And yes, Rudinell, to go back to what you said, exactly. He's great at doing a treatment. He's less good at doing a finished manuscript. And more than just a finished manuscript, he's really an idea person, not so much a dialogue person. And I think he thinks that he's deeper than he is. And he's not. I think he needs to come up with those ideas and then go, this is what I'd like to do. Now let me get one of the, 10,000 competent writers, or even extremely good ones that would like to write within this universe and watch them work. Because emotions. Yeah, exactly. It's all like, but anyway. So I loved Origami King. And I've had a great time playing that game. And so, yeah, Paper Mario, Origami King. We're going to play more of that next year. So much fun. I really enjoyed that a lot. A really good example of what Switch is really good at. Okay. Now, this game is going to be one that Brandon is going to be disappointed is not higher. And I thought a lot about whether to put this in 5 or 6. This is probably one of the tougher decisions that I had in this list, was whether to put this in 5 or whether to put this in 6, because I enjoyed this game a lot. But ultimately, the game that ended up winning out over it is a game that I just felt had more going for it in the end than this one did. So... yeah, and so that's why, I ended up having to go on this regard, and that is Metroid Fusion, just missing the top 5. Metroid Fusion was great. Please don't get me wrong. This is not at all a knock on Metroid Fusion. I really was shaky on whether to put this in 6 or 5. This was great. I loved this game. I thought that this game did a lot of stuff well. It was especially fun because so many of you had already played it, and so it was fun with you all being like, whatever. It was great to have to worry, to have to try to avoid sax, which is clearly how you pronounce it, is sax. I really enjoyed that. There are many times when I had in the room, and I was just able to, I learned a lot about sex during this game. And yeah. Anyway, no, Metroid Fusion was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Metroid Fusion. It was a very tightly scripted game, really well managed. There were a lot of good surprise moments, and there was a lot of good Metroid stuff that I just that I like Metroid anyway. And so playing this, I was just like, yeah. And this was a game that I kind of missed. I had played Metroid 1. I played Metroid 2, Return of Samus, I think it was. And then I played Super Metroid, and I played the Metroid Prime series. And then I played the game that rhymes with Bluther Blem, which was a terrible game. And I played like 10 hours of it and stopped because it's garbage and has nothing to do with Metroid. Anyway, but I played those other ones, and I'm really excited for Metroid Prime 4. I'm going to be playing through the Prime series again on my channel eventually. But I had missed this one. I had never played Metroid Fusion, and it was great to get a chance to see what all the fuss was about. And there were some really cool moments too. A lot of things that were part of this game as a mechanic that didn't necessarily fit elsewhere. So I really enjoyed that. And I'm looking forward to more than that kind of going on. That's funny, isn't it? Going on. So yes, I like this a lot. This is almost like 5 and 5A for me, but ultimately I put this in number 6, which leads us. So those next 5 games were God of War 2018, Lord of the Rings Online, Detroit Become Human, Paper Mario the Origami King, which by the way was the second new game. Spiritfarer was one new game, came out this year. Paper Mario, second new game, which came out this year. And then we have Metroid Fusion, which is number 6. This leads us to the top 5. In 5th place of my games of the year this year, we have, wait for it. We have, show me the game. There we are. We have this game, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. And this is a classic example of a game that has to be placed, that when I talk about games that are paced properly, and that play these games listed overall. I'm probably going to put a list of this up in my Discord, Echo. When I sort of think about games that are paced properly, this is an example of a game that I think overstayed its welcome. If this game had ended about 15 hours before it did, I told you his term, I had a hard time deciding which to put where. I told you what I had to do. I would have honestly put this higher, at least one spot higher, if not two. But the last 15 hours, I think, really let this game down. And that's actually the case for my fourth game on this list as well. The last sections of this game really let it down. At that point, some of the seams started to show through. The game was getting really repetitive at that point. And there was a part where I'm just like, I just want to be done with this game. But there's a lot of good stuff about Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. First of all, the combat is tremendous. The combat and customization about how you build your character is smooth and robust. It feels great. You feel like a badass when you're doing it. There's a lot of really epic moments. The sort of cutscenes relative to your own play feel seamless. There's just a lot of good stuff about Kingdoms of Amalur. It also has a solid story, which you would expect since Bob Salvatore is the one responsible for writing it. It has a solid story. There's a lot of good aspects to it. What I think let it down for me and why it doesn't end up higher on this list, because I put a lot of hours into this, is the fact that it's too long with just a bunch of tediousness that kind of pops into play. And that I find frustrating. And also the game can be fetch questy. It's a little MMOE, and I know Rudnell and I talked quite a bit about this experience. It was a little MMOE, and it was supposed to set up an MMO, and I think it has a lot of MMO in it still, and I don't think that helped it. So, but that said, I think it is pretty solid graphically. I think it has some very nice music in it. I think the combat is really great. And I think a lot of the sort of development of your character and how it builds felt like a really cool RPG. And so that was the deal. And exactly, Rudnell, it was long for the sake of advertising how many number of hours, and the side quests were bland. That's exactly right. But the faction stuff was good. And I actually ended up having a much better time when I just focused on the main quest and the faction stuff. But a lot of those tasks and everything was just bloated. But it's hard though, Dragon, because if you want to be able to be leveled high enough to handle the later level characters, and also not just that, but if you want to experience more of the game, like there were moments where it felt like a game wasn't just go give me 5 plants and come back, but it's like, oh, this seems like it might be interesting, and then you go off and you find out that it's really just a disguised fetch quest again. So, again, I like Kingdoms of Amalur, and I do think that I enjoyed it enough that it was in my top 5 games, but it could have been better. And I think cut it down, like 15 hours less probably would have made it absolutely perfect. That also was a problem with my fourth game that was on this list, which again I liked a lot and I think was let down. The reason it's higher than the game I just talked about is that the part that was a letdown was less. So it was only like the last 7 or 8 hours instead of the last 15 or so. But the game that I'm talking about is this game, Operencia. I liked Operencia a lot. I thought that Operencia had a lot of interesting mechanics to it. I thought that the fairy tale nature of the world, which is set based on Hungarian folk tales, is really interesting and different. That's not something you usually find in a video game. So it wasn't your traditional, typical Western fantasy. I thought a lot of the mechanics were interesting as well. Some fun aspects of combat. In a lot of ways, it reminded me of a much better Might and Magic 10 Legacy. And so Operencia was good. Not perfect, and there were elements of it that I think let it down, especially bland boss fights towards the end. The last dungeon, and especially the last 10 hours, were getting tedious again. Less so than Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning was, but still it was starting to get tedious. But in terms of graphics and music and sort of interesting, some character development, that was good too. I also thought the voice acting here was a little weak here at times, and I thought could have been better. But in general, Operencia the Stolen Sun, I thought was good work for the most part. Broad without being overwhelming, and I enjoyed it. I really liked it a lot. It's definitely a 4. These two games are definitely 4 and 5 out of that list compared to the next 3, because the next 3 were clearly my top 3. But that was the way that I felt about it. But I did enjoy a lot of it, and in particular, I really liked the world, the enemies that you face, and the sort of storytelling. I think was beautifully done. Yes, that's probably true, Rudnell. That's probably true, actually. So yes, I liked a lot of Operencia, but again, ended earlier. Could have been based on Welsh Hungarian folktales. So That was Operencia. That leads us to our top 3. Number 3 on this list is a game which I have been playing over on Pen and Pixels quite a bit, and which I continue to be delighted by, and that's Vaporum Lockdown. This game has been excellent, excellent, excellent. It is an excellent dungeon crawler, well detailed, thoughtful, very puzzle heavy. I think maybe even to a fault, a little puzzle heavy. But a lot of what the first Vaporum had problems with, this game corrects. I think it's a lot more intricate. And I think the story that it tells is a lot more engaging and involving than even the first Vaporum was. And if you played the first Vaporum, it makes this even that much better, because Vaporum 2 is Vaporum Lockdown, which is really a prequel. But Vaporum Lockdown plays beautifully into what happens in Vaporum 1. The level design is beautiful in this game as well. So much of the level design is well managed. So many different ideas on each level, different concepts. Like the hydroponics level is far different from the water treatment plant level, which is far different from the the smelting, the mining level, or whatever it is. I guess the smelting level. It's just really, really interesting stuff that I really enjoyed this a lot. This was like, yeah, crazy good. Vaporum Lockdown is great. Now, it's not perfect either. I do think it's a little bit over kind of focused on the puzzle stuff. And some of it is extremely obscure, I think. A little bit of that, point and click adventure logic problems showing up in a dungeon crawler. And I do think that there are a couple of things that in the voice acting that's a little shaky, that sort of could have helped kind of fill this out. But in general, I think Lockdown is good. And yes, Christensen, that's a good example. Yes, Vaporum Lockdown, that's actually a perfect example. Grimrock 2, Grimrock 1 was Grimrock 1 was an excellent game. Grimrock 2 was tremendous. Vaporum was an excellent game. Vaporum Lockdown, I think, is tremendous. Very, very good game. Now, Vaporum Lockdown is not as good, in my view, as either LOG1 or LOG2, but I think it's very, very good. And again, the voice acting is shaky at times, and there's not... The sound design I'm hesitant about, because there's not a lot of music in the game, but I think in this case, the sound design is very good. The lighting design is gorgeous. The sound design, because of the cues that you get, is actually very good. Very Thief-like, I think. Thief game-like, if you will. And that definitely makes a difference here also. So number 3 on my list is Vaporum Lockdown. Again, very good game. That leads to my top 2 games of the year. This was a hard call, folks, between games 1 and game 2. And I really had to go back and forth on this a number of times because, again, this is almost like 1 and 1A. These are both excellent, excellent, excellent games. And in a way, I'm choosing a game which I think is one of the better experiences of the last decade in terms of role-playing games. I'm choosing that to drop below what I'm choosing that to drop below what the other game is sort of all time. So the other game is a sort of legendary all-time classic. This game, I think, is a classic of the last decade. And some might even disagree with me and think that it's even better than that. But it's super great. And so number 2 for me was The Witcher Wild Hunt with the DLCs. These may be the best DLCs I've ever played. And I'm counting the Mass Effect DLCs, I'm counting DLCs for Skyrim, I'm counting DLCs for Pillars of Eternity, I'm counting even expansion packs for Baldur's Gate. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Blood and Wine, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine were spectacular. In fact, if Blood and Wine had been the main game, it would probably be my number 1 game of the year and it wouldn't be close. This was extraordinarily good. Graphics beautiful, sound on point, music gorgeous, the just spectacular, great storytelling, wonderful character development. And this is the biggest thing that I would say that The Witcher has over all these other games is most of their quests don't suck. Especially side quests. We talked about the fact that Kingdoms of Amalur had a lot of meh side quests. There are very few meh side quests in The Witcher 3. And in Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone, even fewer of them. The quests are interesting, they're intriguing, they're thoughtful, they're moving, they're emotional. They have this sense of moral gray, but without making you into a I'm Batman, everything's bad, everything sucks. Like, it's not like that. Geralt, in fact, can have the equivalent of his own, a happy ending for his story. With, in my case, he got to be with Ciri, and Ciri got to stay with him and then go off and be a Witcher, and he'd get to visit with basically his adopted daughter. Just great. Absolutely great. And Hearts of Stone was great. Blood and Wine, I literally smiled through like 95% of it. I was just like, had a big smile on my face. Just beautiful. In fact, I think that they're better. Well, you're kind of right, Dragonspear. I think it's better than the main game. I thought The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was a little overlong, actually, a little drawn out. Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine both, and especially Blood and Wine, were just beautiful. And oh man, can we talk about the color and the set, the beautiful, the gorgeous, oh man, just gorgeous. It was almost flawless. And the only reason it doesn't come in one is because the other game that I'm about to talk about, which all of you have been guessing in chat now for the last hour, because that game is even more flawless. But The Witcher 3 is great. And I had to think a long time about this because, oh man, Blood and Wine, it was one of those games I played it and I'm like, I did not waste a single hour in that game. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh God, I hate this. Nope. It was just great, in the DLCs in particular. So Witcher 3 was tremendous. Also, side note, Shani for life. I'm also just going to say that, but we'll see. So yeah, see, I don't count that though, Dunsel. Dragonfall is a great game and was listed, as you know, in my top 10, but that's not a DLC. I don't care what they originally said it was going to be. In fact, Vaporum Lockdown, my number 3, was supposed to be DLC, but then it just went on so long they just decided to make it into a standalone game. So that's another thing I can't count that. But yeah, Blood and Wine, Witcher 3 is great. If you haven't played Witcher 3 and you like role-playing games, and especially first-person ones, you owe it to yourself to play this. It's spectacular. It's so super well done. High marks. Yeah, Aaron, I'm not moved in yet. It's going to be a few months for that. We still, not closed out on the house completely, but we're moving in that direction. So Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is mine, along with Blood and Wine, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine is my number 2. Which leads me to, as you've all guessed, my number 1 game of the year. And this, like the one I just talked about, is another game that I feel really broadened and sort of deepened the original game. It was spectacular for me. And that game, of course, is Fortnite. What an incredible example of storytelling when you think about being able to headshot people while also building houses to avoid them. It's incredible. No, I'm just joking. No, that's not the case. My number Whew. Okay. My number 1 game of the year is, of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is I actually think that this may be arguably the best remake ever made, because what you need to understand here is that there were so many ways that Square Enix could have screwed this up. It would have been so easy, and Square has shown that they can do stuff like this before. It would have been so easy for them to just put a bunch of graphics on the front of it and, add some polygons here and there and be like, right, here you go, have a couple of extra music tracks and call it a day. And maybe give you like a limited edition leather cover book or something of lore. Instead of doing that, what they did was broadened it out enormously. Enormously. Every part of what made Final Fantasy VII great is made better in this game. The graphics are obviously overwhelmingly stunning. Like, just stunning. I'm saving the music for last because you all know how I've been raving about that. The gameplay, the combat system is well thought. It's very different and yet somehow feels like Final Fantasy. It is interesting and engaging and not unfair. It is broad-based. It's intricate. The materia system, which of course existed in the original Final Fantasy VII, is broadened out and enhanced. The characters, can we talk about the characters? Characters you forgot about, Wedge and Jesse and Biggs, and these characters you're like, whatever, who the hell cares in 7? These characters are fleshed out, so you actually give a damn about Jesse, and you care about Biggs a little bit, and you know something about these characters like Reeve and these other characters that at the time you were like, whatever. They're broadened out. Cloud, even Cloud himself, who's basically just a big silent edgelord in the first game, becomes something much more intriguing in this game without making him into I'm super happy-go-lucky guy, right? It is spectacularly well done. And rounding it all out, and I know I've been raving about it, is the music. The music is just absolute top tier. In fact, it's almost flawless. If it weren't for the Walmart theme, which I'm not particularly crazy about, it would be flawless. The battle theme, I want to listen to that battle theme on loop, okay? Like just the regular battle theme. The music matches the moment, the story beats, the emotional quality of it is just spectacular. I'm going to end up having played at least 45, 46, 47 hours. I played a bunch of the quests, and I feel like it's been worth every cent. I am so impressed with everything that Square did on this game, and they have to get credit for this. You know, if we're going to hammer games, I've talked about this before, if you want to hammer companies for doing microtransactions and doing crappy jobs with a lot of these games, then you have to give them credit when they leave a game alone, when they allow a game to sort of thrive. And I've been surprised by this in the past, when certain companies, you don't expect that they're going to do something great, and they do. And that was what happened with Jedi Fallen Order last year, my top game of last year. If somebody told you EA is going to publish this game and it's Star Wars, you would have told me it was going to be a buggy, microtransaction-filled mess. And instead you had what was not only mine, but Game of the Year on many people's lists. This game right here for me is a definite Game of the Year. It was very close between this and The Witcher 3, but it was just spectacular. I have been incredibly pleased by this. And I think in the end, when this is all said and done, this may be considered one of the greatest remakes of all time, because it took everything about Final Fantasy VII and it made it better. And they didn't need to. They would have sold hand over fist just improving the graphics and making it available on a console and adding a little bit of music to it. Instead, they reworked it. It is a literal act of love for that game. And I was enormously impressed. So to me, that game is just sick. I can't wait. Yeah, exactly. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, the remaking. Well, actually, I mean, that's another thing too, right? I've seen some people playing Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. Gotta be honest, they didn't do very much with that. You know, I mean, it's basically the same game. Yes, I know they made some tweaks here and there, but it's just, and you could say, well, they don't have the money, they don't have the resources. I get it. But like, I'm sorry, Final Fantasy VII Remake to me is just spectacular. So I was super happy to have had a chance to play that. And it was just such good quality. Oh man, so good. So my top 21 games of the year: Tron 2.0 and 21st. Sorry, Dragon. Kingdom Come Deliverance, number 20. Dragon Quest 11, number 19. Greedfall, number 18. King's Quest, number 17. Spiritfarer, the new game. And there are 4 new games. I forgot to mention Vaporum Lockdown and Final Fantasy VII Remake, both new. It's hard for me to believe that Final Fantasy VII Remake came out this year. It came out in March. Like, what? So, yeah, it was yeah. Anyway, where was I? King's Quest 17, Spiritfarer 16, We Were Here 15, Vermintide 14, TikTok A Tale for Two 13, Destiny 2 12, Heroes of the Monkey Tavern 11, God of War 2018 10, Lord of the Rings. Incidentally, one little side note, little fun fact. Last year's top 10, number 10 on that list was Horizon Zero Dawn, which is another game that reminds me of God of War 2018 and which I only played once and I'm going to come back to. So it's interesting that took the same spot, in a way on that list. So God of War 2018 is 10, 9, Lord of the Rings Online, 8, Detroit Become Human, 7, Paper Mario The Origami King, again, which is new this year, 6, Metroid Fusion, 5, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, 4, Operencia The Stolen Sun, 3, Vaporum Lockdown, again, that's a new one this year, 2, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt with all DLCs, again, the DLCs anyway. Well, actually, none of that was new this year, but, and number 1, Final Fantasy VII Remake. That was my game of the year. So, and in case anyone's curious, Final Fantasy VII Remake was the game of the year this year. Last year was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, beating out Deus Ex Human Revolution. And number 1 in 2018 was The Bard's Tale 4, beating out Battletech. And again, I felt bad about that because Bard's Tale 4 then really kind of fell off a cliff, which was unfortunate. And then back to 2017 and before that, I don't actually know what I had there. So that is my top 21 actually for this year. I hope you folks enjoyed that list. And again, we will talk about the channel stuff and the end of the year stuff on Tuesday, but I wanted to see how there was. So yeah, no, I put Obra Dinn. Obra Dinn was on my list last year. Obra Dinn actually was Obra Dinn was 7 on my list last year, Ms. Terma. Obra Dinn was great. Obra Dinn was great, for sure. I loved Obra Dinn. The games that I put above it, Untitled Goose Game, which again is a perfect game. It goes much less ambitious than Obra Dinn, but it goes for what it wants and it nails it. One of the most fun experiences I've had playing a game is with Goose Game. Neverwinter Nights, Tyrants of the Moonsea, towering achievement, and I played it a ton. Inkle's Sorcery, the Shamantanti Hills, and Kare, City Port of Traps. We're going to be, after Final Fantasy VII Remake, we're going to do the next 2 books in Inkle's series. Inkle reinvented the wheel with these books. You want to talk about taking books and taking something and making it even better? That's Inkle. So those games are incredible. Deus Ex Human Revolution, enough said. And I'm sorry, man. I love Obra Dinn, but it ain't Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order was a triumph. And I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is a triumph. It was absolutely great. Yeah, Game of the Year was Wizardry. It was absolutely great. So, yeah, one of the things that I noticed, a lot of good games this year. I mean, there's always good games every year, but really a lot of good games that I got a chance to play, and I especially enjoyed this kind of these games. I mean, a lot of RPGs. If you look at that top 10, God of War adventure game, Lord of the Rings Online MMORPG, Detroit Become Human adventure game, Paper Mario action RPG, Metroid Fusion action platformer with RPG elements, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning RPG, Operencia Stolen Sun dungeon crawler RPG, Vaporum Lockdown dungeon crawler a little bit RPG, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt RPG, Final Fantasy VII Remake RPG. Like, I'm an RPG guy, right? But I really, really enjoyed a lot of the games that I played this year. So it was sweet. It was great. So that's my top 21 as opposed to 20. And last year, I think I got a chance to talk about how terrible Underworld Ascendant is. I'm glad to say that there was no game that I came across that I played that I was like, this is a disappointment of all time. Not even Tron 2.0 Dragonspear merited the Underworld Ascendant treatment for hackiest of hack games that I played that I had the unfortunate dishonor of having to play last year. Yeah, and there were some games too that I didn't play yet, and so I have no opinion on them yet. I haven't played Cyberpunk 2077, so I can't weigh in on that. Thank God, because everyone else wants to weigh in on it, so thank God that I don't have to be one of the ones to do so. I don't know if I'm going to get to it. I don't love Cyberpunk as a setting, so maybe, but honestly, my Cyberpunk stuff is confined usually to essentially Shadowrun and Deus Ex a little bit. And it has to be the right Deus Ex. I didn't like the first Deus Ex that much. I liked Human Revolution a lot, but it has to be the right kind of Deus Ex. So, so Cyberpunk, so we'll see. I should get a GOG. I have a GOG key for Cyberpunk. I just don't really feel like playing it. So, yeah. I mean, I am, again, I'm not going to make judgments on it. I've heard a lot of things on both sides. I don't know what I think yet about the sort of political aspects of it yet. I need to play it and kind of get a sense. But it's just not top of my list. And some of these games, that's not just about the game being good or bad. It's just not my thing. Like Outer Worlds, for example, right? I think it was Outer Worlds, which is the Obsidian kind of like Fallout New Vegas. I didn't really like Fallout New Vegas. And again, not because it's bad, as New Vegas is great. It's just not dystopian post-apocalypse stuff isn't my bag. So like this one, it's like, oh, it's like Fallout New Vegas in space. I'm like, doesn't do anything for me. I'm sorry. So Shadowrun somehow gets around that, I think, because of the magic and because it's much more vibrant. So it's not as depressing to me to play. But it's another reason that, for example, Disco Elysium isn't higher on my list to play. I have played it, and I ranked it highly, pretty highly in my last year's list, but I haven't felt an urge to go back to it because I honestly just don't feel like being super depressed by a game right now. And so, again, that's not saying anything negative about Elysium. It's just like, that's kind of where I'm at. For sure, Rock God. And again, please don't take what I'm saying for criticism of it. It's really just more what I find interesting, more than anything else. So anyway, that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah. So that leads me to the question of whether we are in good shape for, are we set yet? Let me see what we got for, how are we doing on D&D with viewers? I know that Echo is here. I know that Rising Tides is here. How about Triffid? Is Triffid around and available yet? I don't know if Triffid is. We're going to find out. I have my thing all set up, but we're going to be good to go. And as soon as I know that for sure, I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to start the recording again. They actually have fixed the upload to YouTube video desync problem, which means now I can upload videos again, and I can do so without having to worry that the game is, without having to be frustrated that the game is not, give me 1 second. Okay. Without having to be frustrated that the game is not doing what I want it to do, that my voice is out of sync and I have to do this workaround for this stuff. I don't have to do that now. I can upload the video, which makes it a lot easier. So that will be great. My list is excellent, even if it's wrong. All right. Well, let me ask while Triffid is getting her audio working, let me ask everyone else, what is don't give me your top 5. Give me your game of the year for 2020 that you played in 2020, not that came out in 2020. What was your top game of the year in 2020? Like Elias, what was your top game? Are they really adding full voice acting in a Disco Elysium? Interesting. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Rudno. So what was everyone's top game in 2020? And while you answer that question, it's getting hot in my office, so I'm going to remove my sweater. Give me a second here. Okay. Good. Lovely. Fallen Order, great choice. Great game. I can't wait for Fallen Order 2 or whatever they come up with next. Only thing I don't like about that game is the combat. Everything else is great. Even the combat's okay. I like that game so much it makes up for the fact that it's got Dark Souls-y style combat, which is like my not liking it combat. What's up, GC Darkside? Rob, good to see you, dude. Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays, all that good stuff. Game you played for the first time in 2020, Rudno. Game you played for the first time. Doesn't have to have come out in 2020, but just that you played for the first time. Okay, and I did not see about what you said about Final Fantasy XIV. No, I have not, Isturma. Go ahead and say it again. Thank you for the hosts, everybody. Let's see. 7 Days to Die. Oh, interesting, Uncle Elias. I heard about that, but I don't know much about it. That's cool. That's cool. Still an alpha release, too. Toss up between Breath of the Wild and Hades. Yeah, Breath of the Wild, I don't know. I've seen so much of it, but... Wow, with the sub. GC Darkside Rob with the sub. What does it say? I'm going to take this back if you keep dunking on Dark Souls. Rob, you dunk on Dark Souls so that I don't have to dunk on Dark Souls. You know what I'm saying? Like, you dunk as an actual skilled player in the game while I watch you be miserable trying to do that. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just not my thing, man. It's just not my bag. But thank you so much for the resub, dude. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that a lot. Okay, let's see what else we got. As for Hades, I'm going to be playing that on Tuesday. In fact, I considered waiting until playing Hades to include it. I just don't think it's fair, though. I'm going to have played it for 3 hours. I don't want to then be like, never mind what I said. I'm going to slot it into that. So I'm going to have to include Hades in next year's list. Please remind me, somebody, if you can, that next year sometime, that I said I was going to put Hades on my 2021 list, because depending on where it is. Now, I'm going to be honest, though. I've seen a fair bit of Hades playing. This has got to work against a lot of stuff for me, because I don't like roguelikes usually. I don't like tons of death games. I don't particularly love zip around, like bullet hell-ish type games that much. And Supergiant, to me, is a very good studio, most of the games from which I don't particularly like that much. I loved Bastion. Bastion was amazing. And didn't love Transistor. Pyre, I was like, eh. And there was one other before Hades, I think, right? Have they only done 4? Maybe they've only done 4. But having said that, they're a great studio. This is not a commentary on the quality of the game. It's just the kind of games that I like and don't like. I don't like roguelikes. A lot of people like Tower of Guns or Enter the Gungeon, and it's just not my bag. But I will say that I don't know. I love. I mean, like the music. I love Darren Korb, who, as you know, I've interviewed. I think is an incredible composer. I love his work. Yeah, that's it. Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and Hades. So, and that really, that's the order in which I liked them. Like Bastion was amazing. Transistor, I was like, is good, not great. Pyre, and then Hades, I don't know because I haven't played it. So I'm just warning you up front, Commander Dunsel and others. I don't know how I'm going to be with Hades. We'll see. I'm going to go into it with an open mind because a lot of people that I respect have talked about how much they love this game. But I wanted to be clear that this may not be a game for me. So we'll see. No, I haven't seen. I may have watched him play a little bit. I saw a lot of people play it though. A lot of people. I watched Hoodie, No Quarter TV playing it. I've seen some other playing it. Yep. So for sure. Let's see. Okay, what else? What else? What else? Let's see. So we've got that. Combat was fun on story mode. That's true. Your Project Zomboid. So wait, hold on. Sam and Max hit the road. Oh, very cool. I have played Sam and Max, and that was pretty good. Animal Crossing. You know what, Mrs. Dunsel? I may get Animal Crossing for my daughter and me, because she was actually talking to me about it. And it was a game that I really wanted to give a try to. So I may end up thinking Animal Crossing is cool. In which case, you'll be the second person to know because I'll talk about it next year. I've heard good things about that. Sam Max hit the road. Definitely approve. It was a solid game despite the point and click thing that I mentioned before. Project Zomboid, I've heard many good things about for people who are into that kind of stuff, so that's very cool, Divinorium. Insomniac Spider-Man, you know what, Lathy? I played that a couple of years ago, and I played it a little bit more once I got my new capture card. I want to like that game more than I do, and the problem is I just don't like the combat very much, particularly because I keep wanting it to be Batman the Arkham combat. Like Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and even Arkham Origins, although Arkham Origins isn't perfect, is got such great combat. I want it to be that, and instead I just find Spider-Man's combat to be intensely frustrating. And so you could say, well, then just drop it down to story mode. But there comes a point where, frankly, I don't think the story is good enough for me to want to play it where I just am getting led through it like I was a child of 5. You know, I could just watch a YouTube video if I want to do that. And so I don't know what I think about that. You know, Spider-Man, again, it's a game. I like Spider-Man as a character a lot. I haven't played the new Miles Morales one, which I heard is really good, but I didn't love the combat in this first Spider-Man. So we'll see. I mean, maybe I'll come back to that, you know, down the line. Oh yeah, Rising Tides. I interviewed Darren Korb along with John Everest, who did the soundtrack for BattleTech. I had them on, I think, either last year or the year before. It was awesome. If you do a search for Darren Korb and Arvin Eleron, you'll find it on my YouTube. It was great. It was super interesting. And I've interviewed Austin Wintory, who did Banner Saga soundtrack and, of course, Journey. He was great. Side note, I was also supposed to interview Jeremy Soule along with Darren and John Everest. And then all the stuff came out about Darren, about Jeremy Soule. And I was like, dodged a bullet with that one. So, yeah. But anyway, so that's but yeah, no, I love doing that. Okay. Let's see. The WoW expansion. That's cool. I actually heard a lot of good things about that WoW expansion, Rudnell. I heard about that a lot. Yeah, it's just the question is Terma, whether it's but I don't like grindy stuff though. Like Lord of the Rings Online is grindy, but I can deal with it because it's Lord of the Rings, which is my favorite thing ever. I love Final Fantasy, but I don't love it at the level of Lord of the Rings. So I don't know. Like grindy really worries me about that game. But anyway, Kingdom Hearts 3, that's cool. I don't like the Kingdom Hearts games at all. That's just not my thing. I've watched a lot of Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. So, but that's cool, man. That's cool. Wait, what? Kingdom Hearts 3, that's cool. I don't like what on earth? So I'm getting feedback from someone. Did someone start a call? So that's cool, man. That's in my Firefox. What is going on in my Firefox? Oh, I know why. Because someone in my Roll20, can everybody in Roll20 please mute yourselves in Roll20? That's why that happened. Can everybody in Roll20 please mute yourselves in Roll20? Oh, I know why. Because someone... Yeah, sorry, Triffid. Can I have you mute yourself? Because otherwise we're going to get feedback. It is you, yeah. Their God mode levels the game to the player's skill. Oh, okay. But I mean, does it make it like story-based? Sorry, I can't. I'm trying to keep the. Okay, I'll keep. You just tell. I have Firefox muted for the moment, Triffid. So just let me know when it's fixed, because I can't. Yeah, otherwise I'm gonna get the feedback. Okay, and I think we've almost got the audio set, so that's cool. Okay, where are we? Breath of the Wild. Oh, cool. That's very cool. Let's see. Final Fantasy. So yes, Term, I don't know what you'd say about that, but that would be my only thing about Final Fantasy. All you played is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Well, no, Game of the Year list, any game that you played, though, for the first time, Rising Tides, did you play games on anything else? Like on your old PC, or like, I don't know if you, like on your, like maybe you have on a phone or something, like, or was it just on the PC was the only game you played? No, I did not wrap up Final Fantasy VII Remake last night. I have, how many sessions do I have left? I probably have like 2 sessions left, I would guess, Echo. I love that game so much, though. It's so great. Okay, that's cool, Coven. I'm glad, man. Oh, cool, Rob. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to try Hades. I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Check Discord on our group DM. Oh. I just responded to that. Sorry about that, Triffin. Okay, lovely. All right. There we go. Darren Korb, Hades in the beta, music thing, dread story as it opens up, among other elements. Blink, you die when watching people play. Yeah, Crit Twitch, exactly. It feels to me like so like uber precise, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not a speed runner, frame skip, awesome, badass. I'm not Sigil Mick Super Mario, but in in Hades, I don't know. Hopefully we'll see. Star Renegades, I've only heard the name and I don't know anything about it. Animal Crossing, cool, I want to try that out. Oh, you played Talos Principle? Talos Principle is great. I love Talos Principle. Super, super good. I've played Wasteland 3. Oh, no, I played Wasteland 2. I haven't played Wasteland 3. I think I played a beta or like a demo of Desperados 3. It was okay, but I like turn-based stuff better, honestly. Can't hear Chrome, but can hear Discord after testing. Okay. Talos Principle. Game of less 15 minutes. Roasted Raccoon on night 1. Hey, listen, you play the way you want to, okay? Animal Crossing, more like animal dying. Animal roasting. Okay. 1993 classic. Which one do you mean? Which one, you Christensen? 1993 what? Okay, so I will enable God mode. Broadcast, no video or voice on Roll20 at all, because we'll either use Discord or we'll use Zoom. Okay. Nina Cooney. Any game, like basically your game of the year, Rob, regardless of what system you played it on, as long as you first started to play it this year, no matter when it came out, as long as you first started to play it this year. On this Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, Magic the Gathering Arena. All right, that's cool. Correct, Rob. Yep. Fantastic Cats. I saw you tweeting about that. Among Us. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Star Wars Squadrons. Yeah, I heard good things about that. Final Fantasy 14. All right. Those are definitely powerful things about Final Fantasy 14. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I know about that, but I haven't played it. Oh, man. Problem is, Terma, is that I don't like lying to friends. That's the problem with Among Us with the Arvanauts. Black Mesa came out. I did see you playing some of that. That was good. Okay. And now I think I'm just about caught up. Oh, the Year of Sam and Max. I don't remember that either. Cyrileme Ultimate. I don't even know what that is. Okay. Zoom call. Let me pop up the Zoom call. Let's do that. I'm going to give you folks a Zoom call. So just bear with me. I'll be right with you. I'm just firing it up now. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I feel like, even given the circumstances of the pandemic year, there were some good games that came out this year, indie and otherwise. Okay, there's that. Okay, Zoom call is sent. Zoom call has been linked. Oh, well, I don't know about that. I just meant, Rob, like, because, my top one of the list was Final Fantasy VII Remake, but my second was The Witcher 3. And obviously, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt came out in 2015, I think. And even the DLCs, I think the last DLC was 2018, maybe. I don't actually remember when Blood and Wine came out. But so, yeah, basically just anything you played in 2020, so long it was the first time you played it, of that group, what was your favorite? Any console, like any system, PC, Mac, Android, iPhone, whatever, like any of those things. Indie monster RPG. I've never heard of that, Ramir. I've never heard of that. She doesn't lie. That's funny, but like then the game's not really being played, right? Then you're just like you just don't, like, the game isn't, I don't know how to describe this, like, then you're just being played by the game, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just find that a lot of people I find Among Us more interesting to watch than Mafia. Mafia games, I find so many bad feelings come out of those games, everyone really being angry at each other, and I'm like, why would I want to play a game where I feel pissed off at my friends when I'm done playing it? Like, why would I want to do that? Werewolf is a game that I like if I'm the narrator. If I'm the narrator and I don't have to yell at everyone else, the games I played of Werewolf were just a lot more wholesome. I don't know how to describe it. It was just a lot less nasty and... Okay, you're on Zoom now. I see. Cool. I will allow you folks in. Give me 1 second as I pop over to this. Nice, Rob. Oh, interesting, Esterma. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's fire this up. Okay, in come the fine people. Here we have Echo Alpha is arriving. Here we have Brandon O'Brien is arriving.
Hello.
Hello, Brandon. And here we have Triffity Mets is arriving. Almost.
Testing.
Yes,
now I hear you in Zoom. Good.
I can hear you. Welcome, welcome.
I should fix my mic. Oop.
Brandon,
sorry about all the problems.
No, that's okay. No problem. Hello, Echo. I can hear you too. Brandon, are you being stalked by a set? What is?
It's Santa-chan.
Santa what?
Santa-chan. Yeah. He's a character from another Kamen Rider series that I really like. Kamen Rider Double. He plays Santa all year round because it gives him an opportunity to just gain information for the detective protagonists of that series.
Dude, when do we have Kamen Rider poetry collection from Brandon O'Brien? When
I'm actually working on one. But I keep thinking nobody would be interested in that kind of
least surprising event ever. Dude, I know nothing about it, and just by being friends with you, I am more and more wanting to see it just so I can see it being played. I'm just kind of like, bring to me everything Kamen Rider because Brandon loves this thing. Like, yeah,
definitely. One of these days, I'm sure I have mentioned to you before that Iori Kusano, who is on our Blades in the Dark cast, co-hosts a podcast with me called Righteous Kicks.
Yep.
Which is just us talking about Kamen Rider. And one of these days, we're just gonna like drag other writers on and go, hey, look at this thing. Tell us how you feel about this thing based with no context whatsoever.
I'm telling you, man, it's super good. So
I have a longer Santa hat than your Santa. So ho ho
ho. That's Santa hat, man. And I see that Triffid
Santa hat getting bigger.
Yeah.
And Triffid is again rocking the.
And I'm burning up my house as well.
Triffid is rocking the antlers again, so we got that going on. So Triffid, is everything okay with is the webcam okay? Like, is it all good?
I should hope so.
Webcam seems to be working.
Okay.
I can see everybody.
All right.
Well, she was stuttering like crazy when I and her were trying to fix things. So
thank you for working through them, everybody. Thank you.
Also, Echo, very idle question. Is that fireplace real?
It's 100% disguised.
Disguised?
Yes.
I'm actually going to begin this thing. Because I couldn't tell for a moment if that was another monitor or real fire.
It's like, this is like how Echo lords over the fact that he's Norwegian, right? And he's just kind of like, look, I have a fire here. And he walks out, literally outside his window, puts out his hand, catches a fish, just flying past the door, catches it, brings it in, throws it in the fire, comes out as a fillet, eats it in front of us, and then just sits there and then like yells Norwegian at us. Like that.
Yeah.
That is the experience. So,
I believe it. Like,
That,
how many
that-
hours of sunlight do you get during the winter, Echo?
6
Delightful.
These are true facts, by the way.
and
It is
18
so-
hours of darkness.
I was there during the summer, and oh my God, being in Norway during the summer where you get like 4 hours of darkness was so weird. Having it be like sunlight at like 2 or whatever it was, 3 in the morning was so weird. So I can't even imagine what the opposite was.
Depends
for you,
on
so.
when during the summer you're here.
I guess so. I was there. No, not. You know what? Actually, I take that back. It was early. It was spring. It was like April or May, I want to say. So,
That
yeah.
had been maybe past the time when they had to switch hours.
That could be.
It all depends.
Yeah, that could be. But
But
it was
June 22nd, that's when the sunlight thingy starts something. I don't know. But then you get a little bit of darkness during July, and then August, then it starts fully.
I see. So that's.
I've been to Finland in August for Worldcon 75. That would have been like 3 years ago or something like that, maybe. I've never been in another place during the summer where I felt cold, and I didn't enjoy it. Because I'm seeing other people like they're dressed like it's warm, and I'm like, no, don't lie to me like that, please.
You didn't go to Finland to learn how to drive rally? Oh my God, you're a nutcase.
I drove nothing. I was fascinated by the fact that they had bikes though. Lots of like city bikes all over the place. That was actually really neat.
Oh, don't remind me.
That's really funny. That was inspired levels of insanity. Thank you. Yeah, I like it was something. But I actually remember recording my Mep Report podcast, my long-running comedy podcast that I do with Russ from the Era Vocalists. And I remember recording it with Russ and Story, me trying to do it quietly from a hotel lobby in Norway, in
That
Bergen.
didn't go well.
In Bergen, and it was just like, because people kept looking over at me because it's comedy, and we're like, and I kept being like, sorry, am I too loud? And then they would just sort of stare at me and go back to what they were doing. I'm like, is that bad? Like, what does that all mean? I don't know what this means. So anyway, it was
Arvin, do you mean they were staring at you like this?
right. Yeah, exactly. But holding the still breathing fish that was out of the water that they had cut. No, I'm making that up. I've decided that
I'm
I
getting
feel
a message. I have load system resources. Do I need Discord or can I close that?
No, you can close Discord. We're going to do everything through here.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was what I was noticing was your webcam was stuttering a little bit too, and that may.
Oh, you
solve
should have
it.
said when Iron Traffic was trying to fix it, it was starting like crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you folks did a little bit of troubleshooting. That's great.
Crazy.
Okay, and I'm just about ready to
Close
go
my
with
work
all of you.
laptop also and see if that helps.
Oh, that's why that isn't there. Because I put Echo underneath Solon instead of putting under Artanoon, which is where he belongs. And is it Solwyn Darkhill, Brandon, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I was having a hard time reading my own, because I did it on the laptop, obviously, and so this
Applaud for remembering how to say the name.
I put it again in pronunciation guides. Okay, here we go. And transition
What level
over.
were we again? We're level 2.
You are level 2,
Yes.
and I am actually going to stop the recording for a minute, and then I'm going to start it so that when I upload it to YouTube, people are not going, what the hell, I came here for the Game of the Year show, what is this D&D nonsense? Or, where is my D&D, why are you talking about ranking games? Okay, so give me 1 second here.
Perfect.
Stopping
capture,
recording
Arvin.
now. Thank you for those of you who watched the Game of the Year show. Stopping recording now.